This whole project has mostly been done in secret. When I first started working on it, I was not necessarily intending a full feature at all. I did some podcasting in March of, this is all in the TYT related videos, a playlist on YouTube. If you want to go find it, I go to the bottom. I podcasted, I think on March 3rd when Cenk was, this is when the union busting was still going on. Then I waited a year and a half for the union to ratify before saying anything. I just didn't want to seem like I might be trying to meddle in with their negotiations. So there's another podcast that I did. That's kind of the foundation for the story for the film, because I gathered a bunch of evidence. I was really bothered. By that point, too, they could have retracted and corrected their lie, their intentional smear of the workers that they put out, that the union, that outsiders originated TYT Union, which is completely ridiculous. There's a small hook of potential circumstantial evidence supporting why they might have thought something was amiss, but they didn't do any fact checking following that. The fact that IATSE had endorsed Cenk's congressional opponent has literally zero to do with workers of his company reaching out to IATSE 20 months before that to ask for help because of workplace grievances that they wanted sorting out. It has literally nothing to do with me intentionally waking up the union 6 months before Cenk became a politician. And, I woke it up intentionally because I'd heard about the previous year's effort that got frozen, and I wanted to try to get health care. I wanted to get benefits. I felt like full-time video editing work should include days off that are paid, bonus participation, and health insurance. Cenk was not of that belief. Cenk did not believe that. I asked him for help twice. The first time, I met with human resources. I explained why being classified as an independent contractor was causing me stress, why it was risky for the company. Instead of saying, hey, you gotta say, oops, my berries. Wasn't there Captain Crunch? Like, oops, my blueberry. Okay, sorry. Oops, we fucked up. Oops, here's the money. You should have been paid for the full-time labor that you've been doing since October. Late October, to be fair. Instead of that, their answer was, we're going to call you part-time temporary. You're no longer a 1099. Now you're going to be a W-2 employee, so your payroll is going to change, but you're still not going to get benefits. You're going to be part-time temporary. That's the classification, and my hours were still in the 40s, 40-hour weeks. So I was working 40-hour weeks called part-time at the home of progressives, and this is when, like, the union busting, that meeting I just told you about is when I started to, I said union busting, I didn't mean to say bust, but like when we started to organize the union was around there. So I woke it up in response. Actually, I'd planned on waking it up before, but because, especially with them switching me from independent contractor to part-time temporary to maintain zero benefits, that's really where, like, we were feeling pretty determined. The people I worked with didn't like that the way I was being treated. To them, it was also stressing them out. Plus, I'm a loud, whiny bitch, and they were tired of hearing me whine about it, which I don't blame them. So, those are the reasons we unionized. Again, and then we reached out to IATSE before Cenk became a politician, and IATSE responded positively twice to our request for help, because the person who we truly needed help from, Cenk Uygur, we knew was a dead end for help. We knew they had no hope of getting any assistance from him in our struggle. He's the one we were struggling against. This whole thing actually captures a lot of really clear, like, Marxist delineations, and I think there's a pretty intriguing analysis to be had from it from that perspective. The class struggle, Cenk's privileged fancy lad positioning. You know, he went to the same business school as the Wharton School of Vampires. Sorry, the same business school as Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So, like, there's class antagonisms here that are very much at play in terms of how they work their workers and how we responded to it. And then you add into it this politician thing, and then him lying that the outsiders originated the union, specifically Nancy Pelosi and her minions, Christy Smith and IATSE operatives, somehow tricked his workers into unionizing. That's an insane story. Like, that's just wild. Like, just pick any other show you like. I like to use Cedar here. In fact, this tweet, we're going to go through a bunch of tweets here. I'm not sure this is all going to make a ton of sense as we dive into it. So forgive me for, please be a little bit patient if I jump around a bit here. But nevertheless, this is a comment I left on a video the Majority Report put out. I wrote, I worked for TYT off and on between 2013 and 2020 and helped start the union. Cenk's union busting included smearing unionizing workers publicly by claiming the union originated as a ploy by his political foes to harm his congressional campaign, which is complete BS. Highlighted, it helped Cenk avoid having to answer, why did your workers unionize? Because the answers to that question would reveal the kind of person he really is. Emphasis mine. In my case, I was working 40-hour weeks as a video editor while classified by Cenk as part-time in order to not receive benefits. He doesn't live the principles he sells his audience. Of course, I kept this other person's comment. Cenk screaming he is the left was hilarious, referring to Cenk telling his son Hasanabi, who was far more successful, much more money, much bigger audience, much more engaged audience, much more durable and loyal audience, people who respect him, people who want to hear his opinions, who look forward to the contributions that he can make to the progressive movement, much, much, much more than, any kind of thing that Cenk has ever earned from any audience. I think he's got some loyal audience too, for sure. But Haas outpaced that like years ago and just never looked back. We're talking like Superman versus a weaker No. And so I tweeted this, though. I just said 2.4K likes on a Majority FM video in under 24 hours. It's fair to say Majority Report's audience now knows more about the Young Turks union situation than TYT's audience. How long will Cenk keep his audience in the dark? Did they not deserve the honesty they believe they pay for? Man, I said audience 3 times. That's embarrassing. But the point remains. This one comment I wrote on Majority Report video, on a video about the Young Turks, 2.4 thousand likes, 94 replies, means that the Majority Report's audience knows more about what happened than TYT's audience. TYT's audience was lied to. And they deserve to be told the real reasons workers unionized, and they deserve to be told that by Cenk that he didn't tell them the truth when he could have. He had an obligation to tell the truth, and if he did, it would have caused problems for him, so he didn't. It was easier to say, because the union busting lie accomplishes 2 things. One, it justifies the union busting. Saying that outsiders manipulated my workers into unionizing means that he's not fighting us. He's fighting the establishment. That's Nancy Pelosi's union. I have to say no to this. What am I supposed to do? Just roll over and let my workers unionize? Like, say yes to, even if it was a Nancy Pelosi joint. And like my slang that I use there, pretty cool slang. Even if she did set this trap for you, the version that Cenk Uygur wants people to believe is that he fell for the most obvious trap in the world. Just say yes to the union if it's a trap. Aha! I like we've seen Batman outsmart lasers about to zip his nuts open from some Joker scheme, referring to the original TV episode 1. Maybe a shark in a small aquarium is threatening. Batman gets out of it. This would be the easiest trap in the world to escape. Oh no, a union. How do I avoid this hurting me? Just say yes to the union. But that's not what happened at all anyway. He wanted a union bust. So the lie accomplished 2 things. It justified the union busting, and it prevented people from asking, why did your workers unionize? That's the question he didn't want to answer. When we get to the Humanist Report stuff later in this episode, we'll talk about that a little bit too. And also just to comment on TYT did this bonus show. Here we are on a Friday. They recorded it. I think, it was yesterday. Reacting to all the various drama parts. I'm not sure I'm accepting that framing of calling it drama. It is dramatic. There is a mighty whirlwind swirling around, but just encapsulating it all around the concept of drama, to me, actually, it feels like undersells that there are some pretty substantive things being talked about and being worked out through here. And it speaks to the prominence that the Young Turks has still. I actually sort of was anticipating in the last year or two, I'd been like, oh man, if they just like fizzle out slowly and die, like as a company, like not that I'm hoping for that, but in fact, I was hoping for not that. I know a lot of really good people who work there, and I honestly breaks my heart that they're dealing with stress and unknown, and I'm sure who knows what else is going on internally. The people the public tends to focus on and think about most are the ones they have parasocial relationships with, the ones that they've seen on camera. Those certainly chew up a lot of the stuff. I was on camera some at TYT, but I was never like a Rebel HQ contributor or something. I would do Friday post games, the Thanksgiving 2009 special. I did. I remember doing an episode of TYT 140, at least one. Might even have been the last. That was way back. So I've been on camera for various ways. I did one episode of Old School. I really enjoyed doing the Friday post games with Dave Kohler usually, but also like Malcolm Fleshner, Steve-O at times too. So some people might recognize me. Or when I was on air on the Jimmy Dore Show in 2016, people might have heard my voice talking at the time. I was closely involved with that whole thing. So, but I'm not a guy people know. I'm not a person who's people recognize. It's starting to happen. I mean, I'm not saying like this is my goal, but like in order for this project to reach the heights that I hope it reaches, and like I said in the John Ross interview, it is a nightmare that it does seem like people are interested enough in the story, which is incredibly validating to me, to my decision to make a stink about this, but also, it just prolongs it prolongs the pain of having to talk about these people. But that's okay. I'm interested to see where it all goes. It's been really weird seeing people finally paying attention. And I was making some point there. Damn it. God damn it. Truly, I was on the... fuck. No idea. Yeah, I know it's about this story. So they did this big show. They did this huge, like, very confrontational, defensive to their... And in their defense, they have every right to put out the statements that they want and to make the claims that they're making. I'm not saying I'm verifying or unverifying anything that they said in their big bonus show. I'm not, but I'm not knocking them for standing up for themselves and pushing back against people that are, pointing out things about the way they operate or, all this and that. There's a lot of ways that this, it's like a very complex chemical reaction all happening, and it's sort of slow. And I don't like being close to it, honestly. I really don't. I find this all very uncomfortable and joyless and tiring. And as I was watching them, they were going on about Mondale Robinson, who is a TYT contributor who quit on air on the Ben Dixon show the other day. Or no, was it the clickbaity political thirst trap with Ben Dixon? I don't know the other guy's name. I'm sorry. That was a dramatic moment. That was a very interesting moment. I thought the way Cenk characterized why Mondale quit, at least he finally had the respect to use his name, because he had made references to him before without even talking about who he was. He called him three guys on a panel, which is just super dismissive. I think Mondale probably is getting a taste. I don't know how much he understands about the union organizing so far, or if he's seen the film or something, but I imagine everybody, it seems, gets a taste of the sort of disrespect machine. And so Mondale seems like a really great dude. What an intense thing he's doing as a mayor. He is receiving really scary threats that are dangerous and stuff. And I just the way that TYT talked about him was, I thought, really gross. I think he deserves more fairness in characterizing his reasons for leaving. They went after Ben Dixon, Bonnie, formerly known as Benny, who was a trans contributor to TYT. They brought up Dan Evans, former employee at TYT. They brought up a bunch of people. The Vanguard, of course, they really got their sights set on them. They brought up, and so this was like a huge thing. I was waiting for them to bring up my story. I know when Cenk has been asked about the union busting, he's lied, and that also happened online on Twitter, but they didn't. I noticed there was a very interesting absence that they didn't seem to want to talk about the union stuff. I was expecting them to. As I was watching it, though, I just got really depressed. I was watching it. I got really sad. I just felt really overwhelmed, and by the whole thing. I'm my contribution to the overall eruption of activity, all this commotion surrounding TYT lately. I'm sure that my story and my contribution has informed a lot of. It's kind of like there's a wavelength of light or a torch style. What does that mean? But I feel like I was able to illuminate a lot of this well, because everybody's sort of filling out their context, and having someone with my background with the company, the degree of research that I put into the film, seeing people sharing the film and posting stuff, and people react, like putting out things on Twitter that are stuff that I had posted, like the NLRB notice, which is of course close. No, I don't think it's close. Otherwise I'd show it to the camera. That's like my signature move. So I'm grateful that this whole thing is happening in terms of putting out a project that is long time coming and a long time brewing, and you know, whether I did this or not, if I didn't do it, this commotion would still be going on. But I certainly, my thing is adding to the mix. And as people want to find it and interrogate my credibility, look deep, because it's about credibility, it's about integrity, it's about journalistic ethics, you know, all that stuff. Calling out TYT, especially for their lack of all of those things in regards to this story. And during my time working at TYT too, I wasn't looking for this. It wasn't like my job. It wasn't on my mind, but I never saw anything that made me think like they were fibbing or adding details that didn't belong. Have they made mistakes in their reporting over the years? Of course. Is it possible they put out information that wasn't true? Absolutely. Of course. So especially with the amount of, years of time and quantity that TYT puts out. But there's a difference between the intentional mistake or intentionally misinforming somebody, or maybe not doing your due diligence to check a fact, or maybe learning post hand that you did do something and it should have been fact checked and you didn't, and then putting out a retraction. They'll do stuff like that occasionally. But in this story, they don't seem interested in retracting and apologizing, despite the case that I'm making that they should. You know, they don't seem very interested. I think because it opens up a lot of questions, specifically this one right here. Why did your workers unionize? That Cenk doesn't want to answer. So, all right, I'm getting really rambly here. Let's just keep pushing. So then I tweeted out December 10th. I'm sorry, this previous one was December 3rd. I just posted that up. So 8 likes, 23 faves. No, 8 retweets, 23 likes. Yes, it's going to be a little pathetic when I talk about these numbers, but it's not this one precisely, but this last week, I probably got like 10 times as much notifications in an hour or total than I have my entire time on Twitter. I'm terrible at Twitter. I'm objectively not good at it. And I can say that with confidence because I tested it. I've been trying. I've been a Twitter tryhard for a very long time. Mike Judge follows me on Twitter. I was on a thing called Witstream for a little while back, but I never clicked into Twitter the way some people do with their humor. It just doesn't work. And I try, and it's pathetic, and it's really sad. And I wish I had, because I could have used the dopamine over the years. So last week, though, everything just went completely off the charts. Related to, actually, Emma Vigeland. This tweet here from of me here, I say, Cenk caught violating Section 7 of the NLRA and forced by the NLRB to post this for 60 days. Let's zoom in here. There we go. And they're required to mail a copy to former employees, which is the only reason you're seeing this. This got retweeted 200 times, 1.8 thousand likes. This was quote tweeting a clip, or sorry, something Emma had said. Her answer, this is her answering Anna Kasparian. So Emma wrote, unclear what this means. I'm a member of a union. If that's a shot at my upbringing, I'll let my work speak for itself. The TYT NLRB complaint is public. I've tried to keep our differences professional. I loved you as a friend at one point. I'm sorry you've gone down this road. Anna answered her, no, you didn't try to keep shit professional, Emma. You've been mocking me specially and running your mouth for a year. Your regression into cheering on crime, in addition to your identitarian streak, is grotesque. Running your mouth, Emma. Keep your mouth shut, Emma. What originated this response, this is a terrible way to tell a Twitter story, Jesus, is Anna quote tweeting Emma. Anna writes, well, at first you should read Emma's. Emma says, to be fair, some of it probably also went to hiring a union-busting law firm. And she's quote tweeting, sorry, I'm just laughing at how bad this is, this podcast, her coworker, Matt Leck, who I think is a really solid guy. I've been listening to Majority Report forever. Matt seems like a really good dude, really smart. Used to do a show about books. Hello, moron. Books are last century, okay? Nobody reads anymore. So here he writes, hell yeah, let's get into it. How much of TYT's membership dues have gone toward returning this guy's investment instead of to the TYT employees who have better politics than the main hosts? So he's reacting to TYT putting out or this commentary that they made where Cenk makes this argument. We're going to get into this a little bit later. That in response to having their sponsorship of a company called Polymarket, which is owned by Peter Thiel or partially owned or something like that, it's illegal gambling that is not allowed in the United States, but it's like betting on political outcomes or on war outcomes. It's kind of squirrely stuff. TYT is sponsored. They named the studio the Polymarket Studios. And but this blew up because Cenk made this absolutely, I don't even know if incredulous makes sense, but completely foolish and silly and gross and aggressive argument that because he was addressing the criticisms that he's, sponsored by Peter Thiel's Polymarket as a business, that because Emma, when she worked there, put her videos would go on Facebook because that's where TYT made her put her videos. It's not like Emma was doing that. And even if she had decided, it's not. So her as a user for her job posted on Facebook, and he compared that to him taking Polymarket money in terms of being judged for his principles, as if those are at all equivalent. We're going to get back into this. And even demanding that she pay him. Like, I don't think he necessarily believed that that's would be the result, but man, what? So this is what kind of kicked open the door, or the curtain, so to speak. As I was kind of saying earlier, that people with the forward faces, like the Emma Vigelands, the Anna Kasparians, the TYT contributors that were, the public got to see a lot more than myself, for instance, they're the ones who have more power in this world to sort of advance my story. Not that this is what Emma was doing. I don't think she was intentionally trying to advance my story. But because Emma said, to be fair, some of it probably also went to hiring a union-busting law firm in this quote tweet of Matt Leck. And because Matt did this kind of thing where he's, defending his friend and his coworker against the Young Turks and pointing out various things related to financial contributions. Even in paying Brianna Wu a bunch of money for working with Rebellion PAC. They also do a thing called Cavalry PAC too, which is one of those smaller ones people don't mention. Cenk loves to co-opt language of rebellion for his capitalist enterprise, his union busting capitalist enterprise. Okay, so because Emma did this, because Emma actually, so I've been basically like prepping for this moment, sort of. There's still so many more moments like this that need to happen for this thing to be successful, but I've been trying to pull this curtain open. I'm kind of strong. I'm pretty persistent, meaning like on this project, as I said earlier, I'm not persistent posting. I'm terrible at that part, but I'm not strong enough. I don't have the juice to make it happen, to actually get it, open it up so that enough people peek around into the other side of it. I've been doing the foundation for when this happens. I've been putting stuff out. I've been crossing my T's and dotting my I's and probably imperfectly doing it too. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I've never done this crap before. Like, I'm supposed to know how to navigate these entirely befuddling and exhausting thing. And it's certainly especially shown now that it's starting to pick up some steam, how much more I'm not going to deal with this really well. This is all going to really hurt me a lot more than I thought. I was expecting it to hurt me a ton, just in terms of like the anguish. I'm just so sick of it. But Emma had that power. Emma had that strength. Emma has that profile. And again, I don't think this was her intention, but as far as like my project goes, she, with that tweet, just was able to pull it open, and enough light was able to get in that we could see the other side a little here. And that's brought a whole bunch of attention. Anna reacted to her saying, yet another sign of her pathetic dishonesty. Emma was employed by TYT when the company announced recognition of the union. These cheap shots to make herself look like a class warrior crack me up, especially when she advocates that we all shut up and take when someone assaults us on public transportation. Not wanting to get punched in the face is a bougie concern, after all. Bougie's in quotes. So I'm not going to like parse out all these details here in the second half of this, but of course I was dialed in on, what does Anna think Emma's being dishonest about? Is she trying to say she's being dishonest about the union busting? And what does her being employed by TYT remotely? She was never an office worker. I met her once at TYT headquarters. She came in, she'd visit LA. She lives in New York. So they'd visit and come to the studio, and I went up and said hi because I was about to edit one of her point videos or something, like they were called The Point. But it was like she did like these kind of the breakdown videos with a white background, and her thing was centered. She kept herself centered, so the punching in was mainly keeping her centered, and maybe some moving her head left and right to different thirds of the screen of the frame. Nevertheless, I don't know Emma well at all. I just went up and said hi. It was friendly. I told her I was about to edit her video and just confirmed a couple things about the way she wanted it done. And I said bye, and that was it. And I went back to my goblin seat. But what is her being employed at the time when the recognition was announced? Because they announced recognition on April 9th, 2020. We're going to get into this. So, and also, let me just make this comment here because I don't really have more to say after this. But these cheap shots to make herself look like a class warrior crack me up. So the cheap shot is the union mentioning, right? This is the cheap shot that she went to hiring a union busting law firm. So it's a cheap shot to point out something that's provably true, although Anna seems to think it's dishonest. And then like this comment that she's trying to pretend to be a class warrior, like it's supposed to be a bad thing to go to battle along class lines. I mean, this whole like diminishing the concept of a class warrior as if Emma's interested in supporting unions, and she's in a union, which is why she pointed that out, as if Emma's interest in that is somehow falsified or not true, because what? Like, I don't get that. She comes from a family that has some resources. So what? That's not, I mean, like, you don't, why does everybody who fights for class reasons have to, like, that's another one of those, not that I think Anna is doing that necessarily here. It's sort of implied, but, it's not necessarily clear. But Emma gets judged for that. So it's weird. It's just all very strange. So I reacted with this tweet. And this is the one that went nuts. This one got 11,000 likes, 1,000 retweets. I screen capped Anna's comment, and I wrote, I helped start the union at TYT to try to get health insurance and paid days off. My coworkers shared my opinion that full-time video editing work should come with benefits. Cenk didn't agree. I'd love to know what Anna thinks Emma is being dishonest about. I mean, Anna does, I think, as a journalist, have an obligation to explain, what does she mean? What does she think Emma is being dishonest about? The union busting? You have to prove that it wasn't union busting. We have all kinds of evidence that it is union busting, that it was union busting. As I jumped to the end here, the workers themselves. This is the TYT union. This isn't me. This is workers of the TYT unions. This Action Network petition, the text from their petition, tell the Young Turks to recognize their crew's union. Target, Cenk Uygur, founder of the Young Turks. A majority of us on the Young Turks production and post-production employees have voted to form a union by signing union authorization cards. On February 12th, we officially requested that the company recognize our decision to go union. It's a critical moment here. Cenk had a decision to make. And I bet you he must wish he had just said, well, okay, fine. If TYT had stopped and said, hey guys, look, we know you want us to recognize the union, but we're in the middle of a really weird situation. This union endorsed our opponent, Christy Smith, as this overlaps with our business and our politics. We have to be very careful here. We're going to take a week or two, and we're going to verify if this union is legit or if it's some kind of prank. It falls apart very fast if you think it is a prank, but I'll grant them the space to have been paranoid, given the fog of war of a weird, strange situation that they were running for Congress. So it was very intense and very odd, which is also one of the reasons I kind of wanted to make this film, because I think this is just, as a political junkie, something that should have been documented. But if they had said, we can't say yes right now, this is a weird situation, give us a week or two, we're going to check on the sources, and see what's going on, and then we'll make a decision. And then they would have checked with me. I wasn't working for the company by that point. I was laid off in January. They would have checked with the others. They would have said, when did you guys start this? Was this after Cenk filed to run for Congress? And the answer would have been no. In fact, we started like 6 months before / 18 months before, because there was a previous effort, a year prior in 2018 that got frozen. And they had the emails to prove it. They would have been able to show them those emails. Those emails were shown to the journalists in those articles. I don't think they're all the journalists, but like especially the political piece by Hank Thompson. They write about those pieces. I think one of the other ones does as well. So it's verifiable easily. Instead, they didn't fact check, and they put out statements indicating a completely false narrative that slandered their workers' integrity and intelligence and motivations, and they still haven't retracted it. Continuing, rather than living up to the network's progressive values and honoring our choice, highlighted here, Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks, Inc. are fighting against us with age-old union-busting tactics, including 1. Attempting to force a do-over election on the company's terms. 2. Holding a tense captive audience meeting and pressuring us not to support a union. Captive audience meetings are illegal now. I think the fine is $500, which is just nonsense. It should be so ridiculous, but they're illegal. 3. Firing a union supporter for creating a hostile work environment. Creating a hostile work environment is in quotes. We love this company and its mission of providing a platform for progressive voices. It's why we work here. But we think TYT should live by its principles. Join us in demanding an end to this. Join us in demanding an end to the senseless union-busting campaign. As part of that, at the bottom, this is if you scroll that page down, there's like a shorter one for some reason. To Cenk Uygur, founder of the Young Turks, from your name. Well, I guess this is what gets sent if you sign in. Dear Mr. Uygur and executives of the Young Turks, production and post-production workers at TYT voted to form a union by card authorization vote. We stand with the TYT crew. Highlighted here, union busting has no place in the home of progressives. We call on you to undo your retaliatory actions, grant card check, and recognize the TYT crew's union. Those are the workers' voices. That's not me talking. And somehow, Anna seems to think that there's some dishonesty going on with Emma pointing out something that's provably true. Very weird to me. If you saw the last episode, in fact, there's a clip of it right now. It's Anna on the cover with like a shadow in front of a bunch of words, green words. Look for it. It's in the channel, in the TYT related videos. It's about respect. So we actually watched quite a bit more of this interview here with Nomiki Konst. And so I just included this in this part here. We're going to listen to it right now.
And it turned into a union busting story.
So that's where Anna air quotes union busting. This was July of 2020. So clearly she doesn't seem to think whatever she understood to have happened at the time to be union busting. I'd be curious if these days she gets a chance to read these 4 articles. Here's another tweet. Don't take it from me. The union busting is detailed in these 4 articles. Cenk is interviewed in 3 of them and hasn't refuted a single detail. I'm interviewed in this one here, The Myth of the Progressive Boss by Kim Kelly. The Young Turks, the Huffington Post writes, the Young Turks progressive founder urged his staff not to unionize. That's by Dave Jamieson. In these times by Hamilton Nolan writes, the Young Turks union fight gets nastier with charges of retaliatory firing, withholding raises. New Republic by Kim Kelly, The Myth of the Progressive Boss. Cenk Uygur talked a good game about the Young Turks being the premier progressive media outlet. Then his staff tried to unionize. Politico, inside the union campaign that royal left-wing network, the Young Turks, by Hank Thompson, 4/10/2020, the day after the second election. Very well researched. This one has links to Cenk's emails that he sent to workers, which is really interesting to read. I also, included this tweet. Anna helped Cenk spread the false narrative about how the union started, that the union originated as a ploy by Cenk's political foes to harm his congressional campaign. This was provably false. Anna did no fact-checking before spreading this smear. So I'm kind of learning this whole process. I have to always remember that I know the story better than anybody else probably, but I have to remember that others aren't me. No, I mean, but like I have to sort of be able to, springs on my thing. I have to be able to quickly summarize the story, even though it's kind of complex and there's various like details that someone at any given time might be focusing on. Because I think there's like My Working Conditions are their own dramatic kind of story, in my opinion. The lie itself is sort of this befuddling, weird thing that needs to be talked about as a political action, as an anti-worker thing. Like, I'm sure there's had to have been other politicians in the history of this country who were business owners that were busting unions while being politicians. I don't know of any in the contemporary time period. Not that I looked into it. Maybe, I'm not saying I have the knowledge, but I'm just curious if like a historian of this stuff might someday weigh in with other examples of a guy running for Congress while union busting. In this case, it just happens to be the progressive champion Cenk Uygur, who'd spent his entire career pretending to care about workers and worker rights, who built a whole reputation and a whole brand around that concept, yet didn't live those principles and was doing everything he can to avoid having to explain these principles to people, or sorry, to explain his real principles to his audience. Such a weird, so strange. Media company owners running a union or running for Congress or being politicians creates an extra layer of ethical complexity that's explored in the film quite a bit, actually. Steve Forbes got caught up in some mini scandal. Scandal might not be the right word, but like regarding him writing some columns, because he owned Forbes magazine, and I think he probably owned other stuff too. He's like a billionaire politician guy. Michael Bloomberg, of course. Cenk Uygur, Michael and Cenk, both media titans of their respective fields, for sure. A month later, Cenk goes on the Useful Idiots podcast with Katie Halper and Matt Taibbi. At the time, fellow media titan turned politician Michael Bloomberg had been criticized for his policy forbidding Bloomberg reporters from covering their boss's campaign. Asked about his approach to similar ethical issues, Cenk adopts a contrasting tack.
And I've given over editorial control to Anna for the flagship show, The Young Turks, for the TYT network. And we've told our reporters, you are allowed to cover the campaign, and you're definitely allowed to cover it negatively.
Negatively? Well, gosh, that sounds ethical.
So you cover it any way you like. I mean, I'm super proud of our very, very independent, strong-minded reporters at TYT Investigates that broke us some wonderful stories. So they're free to investigate anyone they like.
Even ball kicking?
So unlike Mike Bloomberg, if one of your people decided to just sort of kick you in the balls at the Young Turks, that'd be fine. That'd be fine, right? They're allowed to do that? Okay.
Yeah. He welcomes their ball kicks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They're pretty tough on folks. So,
right.
And then I wrote, I just included some more of the information here that showed Anna's role in the thing. That I established that the Young Turks workers provided the emails. If TYT's version of the story is true, they have to prove that these emails were fabricated, and that the workers that talked to the journalists, everybody except me, did so under conditions of anonymity for fear of retaliation. They have to prove that they were all lying if TYT's version of this is true, because they're clearly not telling the truth if Anna and Cenk are the original or are the final arbiters of what actually happened. And that's kind of what this project is about, is I refuse to let that be the case. They don't get to be the ones that tell this story. I feel bad enough anointing myself as someone with this responsibility. It's an immense responsibility to people with whom I worked with, who don't have the freedom that I have to do this. So many days I just wish this never happened. Just wish that fucking idiot said yes to the union. Good God. Can I please teach a class at Wharton? Please say yes to the union if you've built a brand like the one Cenk Uygur built. Man. Or like Wharton needs a class that basically goes, if you hire lefties, don't give them a reason to unionize. And if you hire aspiring filmmakers, don't give them a reason to make you the subject of their films. People who are intensely interested in using their skills to, tell stories and to make things and to entertain and to educate. Maybe Wharton needs like a statue of Cenk, like a plaque, something. So here's more stuff from what Anna did, and as far as her contribution to putting out the union story. I wrote this here. What is this? What does Emma being employed in TYT Recognized have to do with anything? As you already heard me say that. All right. So anyway, this thing blew up. It went really crazy, as you've seen. And I'm used to getting I've got like 500 new followers. It took me 15 years to get to like 1,800, and I think it was below 1,800. And now we're at like 23 or 400 or something, which I'm thrilled that there's this much interest in the story. I'm not used to people liking a tweet. I almost have an expectation. It's amazing how fast you kind of get used to it because it's been like a week, and now I'm like, better get 2 or 3. Better get some of these new people liking my tweets so I get some dopamine in my brain. But I'm objectively horrible at Twitter, obviously. So then, where do we go? Oh, I posted up this one, 276 retweets, 2,300 2.3K likes. I included the information about TYT being run by a health insurance executive in this video. I wrote, Cenk screaming about empathy for the 76,000 dead from no health insurance hits different when you worked at his company and had to start a union to try to get health insurance. This summary is about the best I think I'm going to be able to do in terms of like summarizing what happened. I had to start a union to try to get health insurance. Like that's a quick, easy, that's what happened. Interesting story in that sentence. And when you learn TYT is run by a former health insurance executive, according to LinkedIn.
So we're all mad at, now I'm worked up. Now we're mad at.
Now this is from around the 10th or so, and Cenk is getting upset about people having to live under corporate rule and the deaths of the 76,000 people. He's relating it to that CEO and empathy for him and his family versus that whole conversation that's happening right now and the role that these health insurance CEOs and executives play in our world. Cenk could interview Jack. He should have Jack on the air. Talk about getting an inside look. You know, someone wants to talk to me about aquariums. I could be like, yeah, I could tell you a lot about aquariums. The difference between glass and the plastic glass, whatever they call that, acrylic. There's also Starfire glass, which is like this, or Star something glass. I never really got into it that level. But there's like different qualities of glass depending on the kind of glass construction you're doing. But you know, the guy works there. He's got expertise. It'd be a fascinating window into that world. I mean, why wouldn't you? Do some journalism there, buddy. So here's Cenk screaming about empathy for the people who don't have health insurance and the people who suffer without it. With on screen the contract I had to sign that says you don't get health insurance.
Taylor Lorenz, we're mad at Haas, we're mad at all these other people for not having appropriate empathy or whatever the hell for United Healthcare CEO. I have the empathy, but where's your goddamn empathy for the 76,000 dead? Where is it, huh? I don't see any of it.
Did you have any for the people who came to work for your company? Myself there, buddy? No health care? Look, it says it right here. No, like, this is what's so strange about this story. It's like the TYT is explicitly a political organization that has a political mission. It's foundationally formed around a political ideology of some kind. Obviously, there's that seems to be quite clearly up for fungibility or different interpretive marketing strategies. But it's just amazing to see him scream and yell about as if he cares. Dude, we started a union because you had people, somebody working for no health insurance full time. No, you can't argue that you care. I wasn't looking for gold-plated business cards. Why would I say that? But I wasn't looking for special. I just wanted the same shit treatment everybody else got.
Is anybody on TV crying? All the multi-millionaire anchors? Oh my God, your parents might die because they have cancer or this and they got denied coverage. They don't give a damn about the average person.
I was having such a difficult time that year when I got called back to TYT, and I was so grateful for the opportunity to get a regular income. I was dealing with mental illness problems and anxiety issues, and turns out it was all connected to an undiagnosed autistic profile, a very common kind of torture that late identified autistics deal with. I'm pretty confident I'm also ADHD as well, but autism and ADHD is comorbid at 50 to 70%, and plus I have all the fucking, you know. But I needed therapy. I needed help. I wanted to see a doctor, and I was stressed out of my mind, as I normally am. I have meltdowns because I have a nice cat, so you know. Not that that's always been the way. It's been bad in this last several years. My beard fell out. I was so stressed having to put up with this job, having to go to work knowing that I was disrespected that much, that I didn't have any health care, that I wasn't getting paid for days off. It's brutal. And I come from TYT's fan base back in 2007 or 8. I was a paying member in 2009 or something, up until I started working there in 2013. And he treats, you saw the video of him talking about exploiting Haas. I edited that. I found that on the Chuckle Sandwich podcast. We'll probably come across it in one of these tweets. And so just think of how he treats non-nephews. And then he has the temerity to stand on air and scream and yell about the lack of empathy that people have for the dead, for the people who die, for the risks that they are put at. And we stood up to him because we wanted to protect ourselves and protect our dignity and protect me. I felt that solidarity, and I was giving my friends their solidarity that for their cases and their situations.
Those crooked politicians that they cover for all the time, greedily taking the goddamn checks and go, yeah, go ahead, kill them. Who cares? Who cares? We know what the better system is, but I want the corruption.
Who cares? Who cares? Go ahead, kill him. Who cares? I asked you for help, Cenk, and you said you're going to call me part-time temporary, and I worked 40-hour weeks while you called me part-time so you could keep my day off money. Who cares? Who cares? I didn't feel cared for one bit. I'm not talking about special, like I keep saying. Shouldn't even have to explain it. The guy doesn't believe what he says. He doesn't. I'm sorry. You don't. If he did, you don't treat people the way I was treated. And we unionized to stop it. And I feel so sorry for anybody else who's there who's not in the union. But people think the union covers all TYT. It's like 15 people. I'm not sure exactly the composition today, but it was 15 people.
I want the money, Lebowski. So I'm sick of them, and I hate that they have no.
The 20 days off in those 12-month period. So I finally got the third time I was hired for the exact same job did include almost full benefits. Almost full. Like for some reason, the PTO accrual rate was slightly lower. This is all on my Substack. You can read the email I wrote to them asking if I could get back pay. I put all the receipts up there. 12 months. If I had been classified as an employee, I would have been paid for 9 holidays and 11 personal days. 20 days, totaling $3,460 of money that is still in TYT's bank account. It's in the wrong account, as far as I'm concerned. I got bonused for 79 days, starting from that third classification hire, right? So they conveniently prorated the bonus to that hiring date, not to my working time. If I had been bonused for the entire year, I would have gotten an extra $2,300 something. I don't even know how you go about assessing how much healthcare costs should have been paid, because that's like a different sort of expenditure column. But let's listen to this phrase.
I'd kill him. Who cares? Who cares? We know what the better system is, but I want the corruption. I want the money, Lebowski.
20 days times $173.04. Do the math yourself. $3,460 and some pennies. I don't know what else. There's the decimal. Okay. So
I'm sick of them, and I hate that they have no empathy for the average person.
I love how he always refers to the average person. Give me a fucking break, dude. This is going to be a 9-hour podcast, motherfucker. Oh, okay. So this one, 168 retweets, 2.6 thousand likes, 719 bookmarks. This one made the rounds. People are sharing this on their streams. I'm really glad that this finally did. I saw this researching the podcast, the documentary, looking for stuff, looking for Haas on shows. I didn't watch every single appearance he's ever been on. I don't remember why I ended up on this one. But this stunned me when I saw it. I wasn't surprised, but I was shocked, as I write in this right here, that in Haas's first year, he had some mistreatment from his uncle, his blood relative. Here, let's watch it. You've seen this before if you've already on the show, but this is the thing.
I interned there, and I wanted to move to Los Angeles anyway. And my uncle was like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to hire someone and skirt some serious like labor regulations because his family. I worked at the Young Turks, and I made I think my first year salary was like $21,000. Like it was
There's been a little confusion I've seen in some of the talk about that person I saw talking thought that meant his every year salary. That was just his first year salary. I don't think his subsequent years were that low. Could be. Maybe he'll come forward and talk about it someday.
I got money back from the government, so I started doing ad sales at the Young Turks, and they needed someone to do like direct ad sales, and they had no idea. They had nothing. Like they had no program dedicated to like selling ads and inventory. So I basically built that out.
Right.
Advertisement, sales, and operations in its entirety.
Oh wow!
Because I got on Facebook, and they were like, "You're just
gonna
gonna
edit." I put those flashes with the sound to make it clear that it was edited. But he talks about like how he started to make his own videos and started to like do stuff. So when he says he got demoted, it means like he lost his ad sales thing because he was beginning to show that he had should be doing the videos more, and they were going up on Facebook and stuff. Just to be clear there. But then this gets really interesting.
And do all of our Facebook stuff.
Wow!
Like you're demoted. No longer are you doing sales. You're going to do Facebook.
Well, that's because your uncle was letting everybody steal your sales deals too.
That's true.
His uncle would like let him massage a sales deal to the last thing, then someone would swoop in and close it and take the commission.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And his uncle would be like, "Them's the break." So it's interesting because his uncle basically at this point like tries to whiplash this. Like basically be like, I did all this to motivate you.
Are you on good terms with your uncle?
Yeah.
I still love him, but I mean, he was.
But it's insanity.
That's
intern there.
Will Neff is they're close buddies, and he does a show and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Haas getting a hold of this project. The workers in this union are the literal labor foundation for his success. The people, myself included, not just me plus a lot of other people. I'm not trying to take credit. I'm just saying though that like as a socialist, he should show some solidarity to the workers whose labor, time, talent, and labor under disrespectful working conditions that force them to unionize, that we deserve. He should show. It's a good opportunity for him to model socialist principles by showing some solidarity to this project. If he wants to, I know him. Like I say, I don't think he and I could have a very fine conversation. Even if I didn't know him, that's also possible. But it would be totally cool, and I think he would. Not, and my thing is not calling out for not doing it. It's hard to break through the clutter with this guy, but it would be a huge boost to the project, obviously. But these are the workers who built his success. When he walks around his big mansion, he's stepping on labor and time and talent that was transmogrified into wealth through their labor and through his hard work too. So really interesting. This tweet did incredibly well as far as that goes, and I was sort of holding on to that because it was going to be in the film. It was going to include that some part in the full version of it, and it would be like, oh my god, did you see that part? But and I posted this already before, but I decided to we'll just like put it out there because it's just one of those. It just seemed like the right time to show the world that even Haas, even Cenk's own family were treated in a way. And what labor regulations, dude? What are you talking about? I'm gonna guess that you might have been classified as a 1099, something along those lines. I don't know how many other moves there are. Mike from PA does a stream. He followed me on Twitter. A lot of people who have shows followed me. It's kind of gross to be like, oh, people, but that's what I need for this project to succeed. I need to have people who have media and have their own platforms take some interest in it. So these are good signs, and it's not always going to be people I totally agree with either. I'm not looking for that. He writes, it's actually insane how much TYT fumbled the ball by cutting Hassan. They could have rode that rocket ship to relevance by bringing in all sorts of new and younger viewers by actually taking advantage of his popularity. Instead, they backbite and are publicly envious. Cringy. Yeah. That's well said. I had this idea to pitch to TYT, which would have probably evolved into this, meaning my idea was a podcast network, just like use studio resources and devote someone like myself or someone else who has like the skill. It doesn't take that much. You got to just know how to plug stuff in and edit, upload, type. But like farm new content, like they do that kind of through Rebel HQ. Like it sort of serves as their sort of farm squad to like for farm team for people to sort of show up, make contributions. I know that the various Rebel HQ contributors have had a difficult time. Some have come forward. Mondale Robinson just recently, Ben Dixon talked about some of stuff he had done with that. Sandy Lovis, Bonnie, and Jeff Wiggins or others that took a stand and had a principled, departure. But like my podcast idea translates over to also Twitch, and like the podcasting that we would have done might have been audio only, but it's also easy to do a fly on the wall camera for it as well. And then you develop talent out of that for the other stuff. Not to say that that's the perfect answer, and I'm not trying to say they should have listened to me, but like I'm just saying that this idea that Mike from PA is putting out is, and I don't mean this as an insult, but like it's pretty obvious this is how you do stuff. You develop small, use the resources you have, and then the things that kind of pop off, those you can then devote more resources towards it. And they had this massive rocket ship, like he says here, that would have driven that incredibly well. You know, I would have been like, oh, I wanted to do a podcast network, but now it's a Twitch stream network. And that would have been like, well, it's kind of the same thing. What's the difference? It's all sort of the same blended stuff anyway. So it would have been fine. Let's just scroll here, too. I did write something to that one. Comrade Camry writes, holy shit, Cenk Uygur, you really are a monumental piece of shit. The Vanguard writes, now the bitterness towards Hassan makes sense. Cenk lost him as a commodity he could exploit for profit. Very true. Well said. Cloud says, union busting unk shocker. I think I retweeted that one. Michael Ryan writes, damn, Cenk Uygur even screwed over his own nephew. Jeez, what a prick. At Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland, Humanist Report, Vanguard Pod. Dez writes, God will and Hassan are so married. Oh, Will. Oh, okay, Will. This guy's name Will. Not, I was like, God will. Is that like God willing? I was so confused. So yeah, okay, they're married according to this person. Person writes here, count the vote, mask up, writes, hashtag labor. Casey Gay writes, we'll finish the story like their boyfriends is killing. Oh, Will. Okay, see, I'm confused again by capitalize Will, would ya? Will finishing the story like their boyfriends is killing me. That is true. They're buddies. That is kind of cute. Turns out Cenk, someone else writes, ye old nerdcast writes, turns out Cenk lives like a capitalist every day, referring to his encounter with Charlie Kirk in the wild. Infernatrix Sophia, scorpion emoji, glass of milk emoji, writes, actually, I'd have beat my uncle's ass if he'd done this to me. Fair. George Santos fan writes, wow, LOL. Max writes to Leftward Bound, I didn't know about this. Lilith writes, I love how Will comes to Hassan's defense. I mean, it all worked out for Haas, but damn, Cenk really did fuck him over. So, yeah. Imagine how he treats the non-nephew employees, you know? Then I wrote this one a day or so later, thinking like the wave had crested and probably passed, although by this point it had a whole bunch of new followers, and I still felt like there was more to say here. I'm really tempted to do a lot more, but then I just realized I don't know what the right balance is with all this. It's kind of weird and tiring. But I wrote, let me see what date it is, December 12th, 2024. I wrote, LOL, Cenk did so much union busting that how does our brains do? Like, it's amazing that, okay. Cenk did so much union busting, the government made him post a notice to employees saying, I will stop doing union busting, and he's still going around saying, I didn't do union busting. I mean, come on. Continuing. It's all detailed in these. See, almost every time I try to include these links, I really would love if these writers would tune in and do another article. I just really need to find a journalist that wants to talk about this. I need to start sending stuff out. Here's another source, Cenk's own words. These are the emails he wrote to people. Just go ahead and pause it on screen if you want. Sorry, I can't scroll that one. These are super interesting, actually. These are really fascinating window into the mind of the Union Buster. Read them on here on Alex Thompson's Twitter. They're all available, nice and easy. Like I said, come on, bro. Cenk loves to talk about how brave he is, but this is a topic he clearly isn't interested in coming forward about. And just sort of linking over down to this. And I like this guy's, first of all, it looks like me, but I like the profile for some reason. I decided that I had to respond. So I wrote that it really is. He writes, that's insane. And I write, it really is. Like, it's not an opinion. The guy did super aggressive union busting, thoroughly documented, and is straight up lying about it. Be sure to watch him panic here if you've missed this. He even admits it's something one should be angry about. Paul Leto wrote, this and the selling of the studio he got his audience to pay for $20 million to a crypto casino is all anyone should talk about when Cenk tries to say he's left-wing anyway. Yeah, I think the details might be slightly off here with 20 minutes. I don't know. It's just not super clear there. But yeah, they fundraised to build this studio a while back, something like around $400,000 They've done various fundraisers over the years, and then it's now the Polymarket Studios, which we're going to get to in a bit. So that tweet did great. It's I hate all. I fucking hate. I just want to live in a barn with a small house, but I want like I need a lab. I need like a barn where I can make TikToks of me doing woodworking guy stuff, although my wrists are fucked up, so that's difficult. But I would just love to do funny guy stuff in a barn. Have a little video editing corner, fix it up, do a bunch of stuff. So there's the Haas one again. Which one? So okay, so we're gonna get back to this tweet. We're kind of at the end of the Twitter portion of the show. We'll get back to it though here. But Emma responding to Cenk insisting that she pay him money that she was paid for producing valuable surplus to his coffers. How much profit did he make off of her labor? And he has the temerity to say, "Give me back the money because you used Facebook." Like, what? Are you kidding me? We're gonna get that's something that I very much dialed in on.